Now, this is part 3 from the series of 150 keywords for polity. Now, populism. Populism is a political program or policy which advocates the cause of common man in contrast to the interest of elite classes or establishment. It is also considered as a policy driven by narrow political calculations rather than the broader well being of the nation. For example, farm loan waiver is considered as a populist policy. Now, a populist leader is a leader who deploys anti elite appeals to establish direct links with voters, favoring the development of personalistic cult over a party brand. Now, majoritarianism is a political philosophy that states that the majority of the population must have a certain degree of primacy and making decisions that affects the society. Though common, majoritarianism is not universally accepted since it can lead to what is called the tyranny of majority, whereby minority could be oppressed or exclude, where the majority could oppress or exclude the minority. For example, ban on cow slaughter in certain states of India. This leads to imposition of choices of majority on the minority section of the society. Despotism is a form of government where an individual, that is the despot, rules with absolute power. Autocracy is a form of government where all power is concentrated in a single center, be it an individual dictator or a group such as a dominant political party or central committee. And that power center uses force to suppress development of any kind of opposition. Theocracy is a form of government where priest or religious leader rule in the name of deity or deities. In theocracy, divine leader or leaders are served rather than the citizens, and hence they are often oppressive in nature, with harsh punishments for rule breakers. There is no separation of religion and state in true theocracy. An open practice of only the country's prevailing religion is allowed. For example, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Vatican City, etc. are some of the contemporary theocratic countries. Now, anarchism is a political theory which believes that government is both harmful and unnecessary, and hence it seeks to abolish government institutions. Anarchism considers the state as unnecessary evil because it suppresses the rights and liberties of a man, hindering his moral development. In short, it advocates self governed societies and gives importance to individual liberty or freedom from dominating and believes in the ideals of equality and non coercive consensus building. Russian thinker Peter Kropotkin and Russian author Leo Tolstoy are among the important advocates of this philosophy. In India, Gandhiji is said to be influenced to a certain extent by the ideology of anarchism. Now, dictatorship is a form of government in which one person or small group possesses absolute power without effective constitutional limitations. For example, rule of Adolf Hitler in Germany from 1933 to 1945. Aristocracy is a form of government in which political power is held by a select few privileged people called aristocrats or nobles. Aristocracy is a Greek word meaning rule by the best. And aristocrats are considered the most qualified to rule because of their intellectual superiority. Bureaucracy is a body of non elected governing officials who, apart from implementing the policies and laws, are also involved in policy making. It is characterized by strict chain of command based on hierarchy, specialized expertise, certainty, continuity, and unity. German sociologist Max Weber was the first to study bureaucracy in detail. Ethnocentricity is the belief that one's own race, its custom, traditions are better than others. Imperialism is a policy or practice of extending power and dominion, especially by direct territorial acquisition or by gaining political and economic control of other areas. For example, British Empire's control of territories from North America to Africa, from India to Australia in 16th to 20th century AD. Now, cultural imperialism can be understood as the imposition of culture and its values by politically and economically dominant society or community or a country over the non dominant community. For example, the British rule in India, English language, Christian religion, etc., were imposed on Indians. Colonialism is similar to imperialism, as in it is an act of political economic control of politically and militarily weaker country or region by the politically and militarily powerful country for the sole purpose of economic exploitation of the country or region which is colonized. In this process, dominant country also imposes its culture, language, religion, etc. on colonized country or region. Now, Commonwealth of Nation is a free association of sovereign countries, states comprising the United Kingdoms and number of its former dependencies who have chosen to maintain ties of friendship and practical cooperation and who acknowledge British monarch as a symbolic head of their association. Currently, it has 56 members countries including India. Though the roots of Commonwealth go back to the British Empire, today any country can join the association. Now, dominion means that which is mastered or ruled. It is referred to those countries which were earlier part of British Empire but had their own government. That is self-governing nations of British Empire. Example would be Australia. Now, social contract. In terms of political philosophy, social contract is an actual or hypothetical contract or agreement between the ruled and their rulers, defining the rights and duties of each. Though similar ideas are discussed earlier by Greek sophist, Thomas Hobbes was the first modern political thinker to come up with detailed social contract theory. Leviathans is the name given by political thinker Thomas Hobbes to a political state, especially totalitarian or an all encompassing state having vast bureaucracy, in a book named Leviathan, which was first published in 1651. Now, citizen is a legally recognized subject or person of a particular state or a commonwealth who owns his allegiance to the state and is entitled to get protection and rights from that state. Popular sovereignty means the source of governmental power, that is, sovereignty, lies with the people. Popular. It is a doctrine which believes that government should be for the benefit of its citizens. Now, suffrage is the right to vote to elect public representatives in representative form of government. It also means right to vote for the purpose of referendum in direct democracies. Now, fraternity can be understood as the feeling of brotherhood and unity among the people of a country. It involves ensuring two things, that is, dignity of an individual and unity and integrity of the nation. Now, ballot is a device used to cast votes in an election. It can be a piece of paper, a small ball used in case of secret voting. Now, various types of voting. Open ballot system. It is a system where voters vote openly. In India, open ballot system is used in Rajya Sabha elections since 2003. Secret ballot system. It is a system where voters' choice are confidential. For example, general elections to the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. Postal ballot is a facility where voters can cast her vote remotely by recording her preference on ballot paper and sending it back to the election officer before counting. Following restricted set of voters can exercise postal voting. Now, certain members of the armed forces like Army, Navy, and Air Force, members of armed police force of a state serving outside the state, government employees posted outside India, and their spouses are entitled to vote only by post. In other words, they can't vote in person. Voters under preventive detention can also vote only by post. Now, special voters such as President of India, Vice President, Governor, Union Cabinet Minister, Speaker of the House, and government officers on poll duty have the option to vote by post, but they have to apply through a prescribed form to avail this facility. New category of absentee voters can now also opt for postal voting. These are voters employed in essential services and unable to cast their vote due to their service conditions. For example, officials of Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, Northern Railways passenger and freight services, media persons are notified as absentee voters. Moving on to constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is a political idea that the government's power is limited by constitution and it derives its legitimacy as well as authority from the constitution. Now, constitutional morality can be understood as the adherence to the core principles, substantive content of the constitution, like constitutional supremacy, parliamentary form of government, rule of law, equality, liberty, justice, intolerance for corruption, etc. Now, equality before law is a concept of British origin which states that no person, whether rich, poor, high, or low, is above the law. Hence, it denies any special privileges in favor of any person. It is considered as a negative concept as it restricts states from engaging in any arbitrary discrimination between individuals. Equal protection of law. This concept has its origin in American Constitution and it means that like should be treated alike without any discrimination. It has two meanings: equality of treatment under equal circumstances, both in privileges conferred and liabilities imposed by the laws, and similar application of the same law, to all persons who are similarly situated. Thus, it is a positive concept which allows government to initiate positive discrimination or affirmative actions, example reservation, in favor of weaker sections of the society. Moving on to rule of law, it is a principle which believes that no one is above the law and citizen as well as governments are bound by the law of the land. Thus, in general, it secures a non-arbitrary form of government and prevents the arbitrary use of power. According to A.V. Dicey's theory, rule of law has three pillars based on concept that a government should be based on a government should be based on principles of law and not of men. These are supremacy of law, equality before law, and predominance of legal spirit. Article 14 of the Indian Constitution establishes the rule of law under equality before law. The notion rule of law comprises both procedural and substantive justice. Procedure established by law. The doctrine of procedure established by law confers limited power to judiciary when it comes to examining any action or law of the state. Under it, the courts can examine whether there exists a law that allows for such an action, whether the law was enacted by competent body legislature, and whether the correct procedures were followed during the enactment. But it does not allow the court to examine the law itself. The term is explicitly mentioned in Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. However, due process of law is the doctrine of due process which confers wider powers in the hands of judiciary. Under this doctrine, in addition to checking three conditions under the procedure established by law, the court also checks whether that law itself is fair, just, and not arbitrary. If the courts find the law is oppressive and arbitrary, it can declare the law as null and void. Parliamentary form of government is the one where executive is responsible to the legislature for its policies and acts as the head of the government. The prime minister is the leader of the ruling party in the legislature. In such a system, the head of the state can be elected as well as unelected, as in case of UK. Pres- Presidential form of government is one in which executive is not responsible to legislature for its policies and act as is constitutionally independent of the legislature in respects of its term of office. The head of the government and the head of the state are one and the same. That is the president. The president is directly elected and has a fixed tenure. Proportional representation. Now, the proportional electoral system is an electoral system where political parties get as much representation, that is, number of seats in the legislature, as much as the share of votes they get in elections. It means the seats are given to parties in proportion to their vote share. That'll be it for this video. We'll be covering it in the next video, that is the fourth part.